acknowledge that the last 50 years of the history of mankind has seen an extraordinary phenomenon of travel and tourism expanding in unimaginable ways. It's a truly extraordinary central global phenomenon, and it ought to attract our attention and our interest. Only last year, and even coming out of one of the most difficult economic crises, 940 million people crossed international borders in 1 year. We're expecting to have close to 1 billion travelers across international borders towards the end of this year or early 2012. They're generating close to $1 trillion of revenues every year. 5% of world GDP, 1 out of 12 jobs all over the world is created through the travel and tourism industry. This is truly a grand phenomenon. People have decided that they want to move around this world and enjoy it. At a time where many other commodities in this world have moved, goods, trade, information, and money, this is the time for people to move all over the world. The world has opened up. There is absolutely no place under the sun that is not visited, reachable, and open and welcoming visitors. This truly important human phenomenon is now overwhelming. But we have to bring it down to its fundamentals and its basics. It's all about people. And if we do not keep that in mind and lose focus of what this is all about, this becomes a meaningless human activity. It's about the stories of ordinary people from Ecuador, Tunis, Burkina Faso, Spain, Salvador, Greece, all of which are very highly represented here by very good ministers that have taken time to come here. Mozambique, Tanzania, all the good countries of the world and the good people of the world. It's about the little lady that is living off renting some rooms in her house that she has inherited from her deceased husband and making some money, employing some people and generating some little income. Or about a young man minister in the southern Sahara of Tunis that has decided to open up a little shop, an internet operation, and attract people to do so. Or about a lady in Burkina Faso who has decided to produce some embroidery or some woodcuts to sell to people and make some living. This is what tourism is all about. Any loss of focus in this direction is very devastating. Because, dear friends, with affluence and power and overwhelming economic impact come responsibility. And it's responsibility that brings us together to bring a better world to the future generation. In this very wonderful and fascinating activity called travel, there is a downside. A downside that we must be very fully aware of. A downside that can make all the boundless opportunities that are embedded in this industry become bleak. These are issues that we must discuss frankly, openly, and with courage, without concern to the concept of sustainability and responsibility. Tourism can develop in ways that can end up creating irreversible damage to our environment, deplete our natural resources, disrupt our social structures and our cultural values that we so much cherish, and most importantly, ignore and maybe even contribute to the suffering of the vulnerable sectors of our society, particularly children and women. A tourism sector without an ethical consciousness can be very harmful to our planet, and it can shred the very sense of our society. We need to place ethics, responsibility, and sustainability at the core of our industry. Otherwise, it has no meaning and no place in the world of today. And only ethical foundations, a commitment to responsible attitudes that foster sustainability, can harness tourism's enormous capacity. Nothing less. The second point, ladies and gentlemen, the third point, I'm sorry, is that the promotion of responsible and sustainable, university acceptable tourism has always been at the very heart of UNWTO. As part of the UN family, we are a specialized agency of the United Nations that is entrusted in the promotion of responsible and sustainable tourism. 10 years ago, when we were here celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Global Code of Ethics, the General Assembly of the United Nations in New York accepted this very important document as a set of guidelines and principles tailored to help maximize tourism's benefits while minimizing any potential negative consequences. It simply aims at making us doing it right, doing the right thing. It is very much in line and consistent with the International Declaration of Human Rights and Declaration of the Millennium Development Goals and the codes and principles that are enshrined into them. Since its adoption by our General Assembly in 1999 in Santiago de Chile and the adoption in 2001 by the UN General Assembly in New York, it has been the core and the foundation of the work of our organization. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, the implementation of this code becomes more important than the actual adoption and commitment to it. And I'm very glad and happy to have with us today David Dalglish, one of the founders and the principal authors of the code, and today the chairman of the World Committee on Tourism Ethics that is entrusted with the implementation and the monitoring of this code. I'm also delighted to have a very high representation from Italy. Rome is the headquarters of the Secretariat for the implementation of the Codes of Ethics. Dawi, it's always a pleasure to have you with us and see how years have only made you tougher, stronger, and more committed. Fourth, it is very important for me to highlight one very important aspect of the Code and of ethics. And that's where your presence, President Sampaio, becomes very important. In 2 weeks' time, I'll be heading with many dignitaries from all over the world to the city of Aswan in Egypt to celebrate on the 27th of September the World Tourism Day under the title Tourism Linking Cultures. It is very important to establish this very strong connection and relationship between tolerance, cultural, mutual understanding, and peace, and how they relate to tourism. The cultural exchange is a cornerstone in evoking responsible travel and tourism. It is said you can never carry feelings of animosity or hatred to people that you have visited, and it's very true. There is nothing more powerful than visiting and interacting with people to break down stereotypes and barriers. It is this dialogue which builds understanding and promotes respect and encourages a regard for culture, religious diversity, and fosters peace and prosperity. This year, in World Tourism Day, we are also choosing a very unique destination, Egypt. A place in North Africa that has been witnessing winds of change, together with its other sister countries and societies that are also very meaningful. It was no accident to go to Egypt, and it is no accident that the Minister of Tourism of Tunis, in the middle of all of this, has decided to spend these 2 days with us. The world is changing. Winds of change in the Middle East and North Africa are very significant and important. And it's very important for us in the international community to declare clearly, without shy and with courage, we are on the right side. We can only be on the right side, which is the side of people. Last season, ITV, last March, I attended in Berlin one of the most important exhibitions in tourism. And there was a panel on the so-called Arab Spring. A very fine lady sharing the panel with me from the country of Egypt stood up and looked me in the face and said, tourism has been an industry that has served autocratic dictatorships and has channeled funds and money into the wrong pockets. How can tourism be something good? It's an important question. My immediate response to it was the progress of tourism in Tunis, Egypt, and many, many countries that have developed a very successful industry belongs to the people of this country. And I quickly remembered how the experiment and the experience of Spain and Portugal, Mr. President, in building historically foundations of tourism under different political systems, have been able so quickly, with the winds of democracy, to channel all these benefits to the good of the people, democratize this industry, and make it work for the little people and for everybody under the sun. We must embrace these principles, and we must link the changes to one another, and we must be politically very conscious and aware. Finally, and my last point, ladies and gentlemen, it is imperative for me to give due credit to all the participants in this very important meeting. It is important to have the public sector very strongly represented here by the strong ministers and the strong participation of many countries from all over Europe, Africa, America, and Asia. But it is also equally important, if not more, to acknowledge the contribution and the commitment of the private sector to this endeavor. And I'm delighted and thrilled to see how enthusiastic the private sector was, and particularly, Joan Mesquida, you're absolutely correct. The Spanish private sector, represented so strongly here, has demonstrated an excellent example and have decided that their place is to occupy the high moral grounds, and that it is not only profit that matters, because after all, sustainable, good, responsible, clean, ethical tourism is good business. It is also important to acknowledge the presence and the contribution of the civil society and academia, very strongly represented. We have forged excellent alliances with ECPAT, World Responsible Day set up, with many, many of the organizations represented here. We're open to include all of those in one very important umbrella. Ladies and gentlemen, with such a conference at this very critical time, which will allow us to share our experiences and promise a brighter and more ethical future for tourism, we are firmly on the right path. I'm sure success has already been assured. Let us all assume the high moral grounds and give an example to other sectors on how we will build and forge a better and more promising world for the generations to come. Thank you so much.